Let us start with SA 200. Alright, so SA 200, Standard on Auditing 200, it is the most fundamental standard, okay, and very important from CA Intermediate's perspective. A lot of questions are being asked from this part. So what is the name of the standard? Let us cover that. Overall objectives of the independent auditor. This is the first part. Overall objectives of the independent auditor and the conduct of audit in accordance with standards on auditing. Okay, so there are two parts in the name itself. Overall objectives of the independent auditor. Now please, before I move ahead with the standard, just one question I want to ask all of you. Who do you think is who do you think is independent? A statutory auditor or an internal auditor? Statutory auditor. Statutory auditor. Internal auditor, they are relatively less independent, okay, and most of the companies, they are the persons of the management, they are the employees of the management, so you cannot expect that level of independency from them. But this particular standard, SA 200, overall objectives of the independent auditor, so is it applicable to internal audit or the statutory audits? Please remember, all the standards on auditing, it is for our external audit, for our statutory audit. For internal audit, we have got separate set of standards which has not been notified yet, which is not there in your course. SIA, we call them as SIA. Okay, so this is for external audit. So overall objectives of independent auditor and the conduct of audit in accordance with standards on auditing. So what is the objective of independent auditor? I told you this, that we are going to cover up the topic objectives here also in detail. So as per SA 200, what is the objective of independent auditor? It says to obtain reasonable assurance that financial statements are free from material misstatement. Obtain reasonable assurance that financial statements are free from material misstatement. Okay, so as to enable the auditor to express an opinion on the financial statements that they are prepared as per applicable FRF. So first point, remember three words. Remember three words when I say objectives of independent auditor. First is reasonable assurance. Okay, he gives a reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatement. This reasonable assurance, how does he give? He gives it in the form of an opinion. He gives in the form of an opinion that the financial statements are prepared as per the applicable FRF. FRF is Financial Reporting Framework. And does he give his opinion verbally? No, he needs to give it in a written format. He needs to come up with the opinion in his report. So finally, we have to report on the financial statements and communicate as required by the standards on auditing. So this is the objective of an independent auditor. I am repeating it again. Three keywords: reasonable assurance, opinion, report. So the auditor has to obtain reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatement. Okay, he has to give an opinion that the financial statements are prepared as per FRF. That means he has to give an opinion that the financial statements are giving true and fair view. How does he give his opinion? In the form of a report. To report and to ultimately through this report he communicates also. Okay, so to report. Is this clear to everyone? Very simple. Done. Okay, so this was the first topic of SA 200. Now second important topic, which is, this is the most important topic of SA 200 obviously. What are the requirements of SA 200? So we have 5 requirements under SA 200. I'm just going through the names first. Ethical requirements, then we have professional skepticism, professional judgment, sufficient and appropriate audit evidence, and conduct of an audit in accordance with standard on auditing. 5 requirements. So they may straight away ask you, explain the requirements of SA 200. So you have to mention all the 5 requirements. Okay, but apart from this, you know, this ethical requirements has got separate this ethical requirements has 5 more requirements. This ethical requirements has got 5 more requirements. So they may ask you a separate question on ethical requirements also. Please be very careful what the question is being asked. Please read it carefully. Okay, let me repeat again. They may ask you, explain the 5 requirements of SA 200. Then you have to mention ethical requirements, professional skepticism, judgment, evidence, and conduct of audit in accordance with SA. They may ask another question, explain the ethical requirements. Then you have to mention these 5 requirements which come under ethical requirements. Okay, so be very careful. Now, what is ethical requirement? Let us understand this. The auditor shall comply with relevant ethical requirements, including independence. Okay, he is required to comply with the code of ethics issued by ICI, and he shall be independent. Auditor shall be independent. Independence, I have already covered this. Independence comprises both independence of mind and independence of appearance. Okay, now when I say is required to comply with the code of ethics issued by ICI, 5 requirements you have to follow. 5 requirements you have to ensure. First is integrity, second is objectivity, third is professional competence and due care, fourth is confidentiality, and fifth is professional behavior. Okay, so when I say integrity, guys, I'll write it in short here. When I say integrity, integrity means I have to be honest. I can also write, let's say, I have to be very straight forward here. Okay, when I say objectivity, objectivity means I have to work in a very unbiased or let's say I have to be very impartial. Okay, third is professional competence and due care. So see, whenever I go for an audit, or let's say whosoever I send for the audit, he needs to be competent, he needs to be updated. So if you are thinking that okay, once you become a chartered accountant, will all you उसके बाद कभी पढ़ना ही नहीं पड़ेगा, you will not have to study any further. It is not like this. The profession that you have chosen, okay, it demands that you have to be constantly in touch with books. Every other day Modi ji comes up with a new law, new amendment, so you have to be updated. If you are not updated, how do you think you are going to perform the audit well, right? So when I say professional competence and due care, it simply means that you have to be updated. Okay, you have to be updated. Obviously you have to have the knowledge, you have to have the degree, you have to have the skills, but at the same time you need to be updated, okay, with the latest rules, regulations, whatever it is, the laws. Next is confidentiality. Okay, so what does confidentiality mean? That when you are auditing, okay, during the course of audit you might come across a lot of information of your client. Okay, so this information you are not going to disclose it to any third party. You are not going to disclose any information which you come across during the course of audit of a client to any third party. Okay, however, there are two exceptions to this. You may disclose the information if basically you are bound by your legal or professional duty. If it is, now for example, I am doing your income tax audit, and there is a requirement that I need to mention all the transactions with your related parties. I need to mention the kind of transaction, whether it is purchase, sale. I need to write the name of the related party. I need to write the nature of relationship, whether it is your father, mother, your brother, sister, whatever it is. So I am disclosing that information to the income tax authorities, but this doesn't mean I am breaching the confidentiality principle here. I am doing so because I am bound by the principle of, I am bound by law to do so. Okay, and secondly, I can also disclose the information which I have obtained during the course of audit to third parties if my client permits. If the client expressly permits me, I can use that information. Now, for example, I have been invited by ICI to speak upon, let's say, internal controls. Okay, and this client of mine, let's say Aparna is a client of mine, and she happens to have a awesome internal controls. So I ask Aparna, do you mind if I share your system of internal controls, if I share about the system of internal controls in a seminar? So Aparna says, no, I don't have any problem, you may just go and share the information. So Aparna has expressly permitted me to use this information, so I can use this information and in my seminar now. Okay, so what is the general rule? That I shall not disclose any information to third party, but there are two exceptions. What are the two exceptions? If I am bound by legal or professional duty, I may disclose, and secondly, if the client expressly permits me. Okay, and now last is professional behavior. See, with my clients I should always be professional. There should not be any emotional connection. There should not be much of emotional connection between the auditor and the auditee. Now what happens, just for an example, let's say let's say a client of mine, last year he told me that sir, will you charge 5,000 rupees as fees, will that be okay? I told, you have been paying me 25,000, why should I charge 5,000? No sir, we have problem this year, or else sir, I'll give you 5,000, but you don't check fixed assets, you don't check inventory. I'll give you 5,000, you do half of the audit. I'll say, no, I cannot do this. You cannot define the scope of the audit. The scope of audit has been given by the law, so I cannot do this. Sir, you do one thing, sir, you, rather than you coming to the audit, you send your juniors, you send your article assistants, they'll come and do the audit, but I'll be able to only pay 5,000, sir. So he keeps on basically pleading. Okay, and somehow I say, okay, you have been my client for last 5 years, 3 years, so okay, this year I'll do it for 5,000. Now when I do this, I am basically being emotional here. Okay, and obviously, see, practically what happens, if I was getting 25,000, now he's giving me 5,000, somehow the quality of the audit will be affected. obviously my determination towards the work will not be great here, because of obviously I know that I'm going to get only, let's say, 5,000 rupees here. So we shouldn't be not be very much emotional towards our clients, but yes, there has to be a strict professional relationship. Okay, so professional behavior is what we have to follow. Okay, so these are the 5 points. Question they may ask you: explain the ethical requirements, or explain the let's say what all requirements has to be complied with as per the code of ethics issued by ICI. So integrity, objectivity, professional competence and due care, confidentiality and professional behavior. Is this clear to everyone, this point, ethical requirement? Okay, all right. Now next is very important, again can be asked for short note also. So what is professional skepticism? And they ask you, explain, give some situations where the auditor needs to exercise professional skepticism, or give some certain examples. So when I say professional skepticism, let us first understand the meaning, and then we are going to go through some examples also. Okay, so what is professional skepticism? Remember the word attitude. Okay, it is an attitude of the auditor due to which he remains alert. He remains alert for any possible misstatements in the financial statement. He remains alert. He remains vigilant for any possible or probable misstatements in the financial statement. Questioning mind, basically. Okay. But guys, please remember, professional skepticism doesn't mean that I'll keep on doubting everything. I'll see everything with the eyes of suspicion. It doesn't mean that. We are very gentle and humble people. Whatever the management, whatever the client gives us, we basically accept it to be truthful, until unless we find something contradictory. Okay, so it never happens that management gives us the financial statement. Let's say this is a financial statement, and we say, no, I can sense something fishy here. There is something, there are misstatements, no doubt. It is written upon your face that you must have done some intentional misstatements. We never behave in this manner, right? So when I say professional skepticism, it simply means you have to be alert, but it doesn't mean that you have to doubt everything which management gives to you. All right. So now, if this question, write a note on professional skepticism, comes in the exam, so you have to write the meaning, and let us understand some examples, some situations where you have to basically exercise professional skepticism, wherein you have to let's say switch on the radar of your professional skepticism. Okay, so you have found some contradictory audit evidence. Management was telling you something else, but when you started doing the audit, you found something contradictory. Let's say the director told me we make BRS every day, bank reconciliation statement. Now when I spoke to the accountant, I told him to give me the BRS. He told me that no, we don't make BRS. In fact, the last BRS that we made was 6 years ago. So now this is something contradictory. Now my radar of professional skepticism should be on. I should be alert now. Okay, all right. So conditions indicating possible frauds. Whenever we see something fishy, or let's say I have a suspicion, okay, there might be some intentional misstatements. Okay, so I have to be alert. Okay, conditions questioning reliability of documents or responses. Now reliability of documents. Now let's say I am verifying the land and building of the client. Okay, so they produced photocopy of the title deed. Okay, so when I ask for originals, they say, okay sir, it is in the bank, we'll give it tomorrow. And this way they are just delaying it and not producing the original document. So what will happen now when they are instead of, like, despite the fact that I have asked them to produce the original document so many number of times, they are not producing it. Now I should be alert that yes, there might be something wrong. Why aren't they showing me the original documents? Okay, so when you have doubts on the reliability of documents and they don't produce the original ones, again the professional skepticism should be on. Okay, now circumstances suggesting the need for audit procedure in addition to those required by standards on auditing. Now again, it is a matter of professional judgment that, see, you all know this, that the standards tells us the procedures to be followed when we are doing the audit. For example, 501, it tells us what all things we need to do when it comes to inventory. But now if you feel that whatever procedures are mentioned in the standard, you have not been able to gain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence, you want to apply some additional procedures also. That means that particular thing is really very important. Okay, so when such situation arises wherein you have to apply additional audit procedures also along with the procedures that are mentioned in standards on auditing, you need to be alert here. You are applying procedures because maybe you are not very satisfied with the evidence, right? So these are certain circumstances wherein this radar of professional skepticism, you should switch it on. But please guys, remember this point, that professional, that this attitude of professional skepticism, it has to be maintained throughout the audit. It shouldn't be like that you were very alert in the initial phases of the audit, and as and when you became familiar with the management, as and when the audit proceeded, you become your professional skepticism, it went down. It shouldn't happen like this. It should remain, you should remain alert throughout the audit. So these are the examples. Please be very careful. Question can be framed from this part. Any doubts in this? Clear? Okay. Professional judgment, again a very important point. Almost in every aspect of audit, the auditor has to make or take a lot of decisions. Okay, now these decisions should not be based on intuition, or let's say I toss a coin. Okay, if it is head, I'll do this. If it is a tail, I'll do this. No, this is not how auditor makes or takes decision. Rather, his decision should be backed by his experience, his knowledge and training. Okay, so what is professional judgment? That the auditor should not be making or taking decisions on the basis of intuition. Rather, whatever decision he takes during the course of his audit, it should be based on his experience, his past experience, on whatever knowledge he has gained, on whatever trainings he has undergone. His decision should be based on that. In simple terms, in layman's terms, if I say, your decision should not be random, your decision should not be based on intuition. Okay, so what is professional judgment? During the course of audit, the auditor makes judgments in various situations. These judgments should be based on EKT. Remember the word EKT, experience, knowledge and training. Always remember, if they ask you to write something about professional judgment, mention these three words, that decisions must be based on experience, knowledge and training. Right? Again, I remember that once in old course, there was a question asked, state some situations in which professional judgment is exercised by the auditor. And the students who just cram the subject without understanding in depth, they were of the thought that, okay, this question has not been covered by sir. From which topic did this question come? We are not able to find the chapter from which this question has been asked. Hare, this is such a general question. In almost every chapter, the auditor needs to exercise professional judgment. So what are the some examples wherein the auditor exercises professional judgment? Now, whether this evidence is sufficient and appropriate or not, again, it is a matter of professional judgment or not. Let's say Archana is also an auditor and I am also an auditor. Archana might find that these three evidence are sufficient. I might feel that no, two are sufficient. So again, it is a matter of professional judgment. Okay, so all topics, almost everywhere, professional judgment is required. Planning and performing the audit. Materiality. For Archana, maybe 10,000 rupees is material. For me, I am considering materiality as 5,000. Again, it is a matter of professional judgment. I cannot say Archana is wrong here. She, on the basis of her knowledge, her experience, her training levels, she has determined materiality as 10,000. It is a matter of professional judgment. Okay, how nature, timing, and extent of audit procedures that I need to perform. Again, it is a matter of professional judgment. Audit. You are an auditor. I am also an auditor. Probably you will apply only 2 procedures. I might apply 8 procedures. You are experienced, you feel that applying 2 procedures will give you sufficient appropriate audit evidence, then you go ahead with 2. So again, it is a matter of professional judgment. Okay, now what amounts to sufficient, what amounts to appropriate, again, matter of professional judgment. So almost everywhere, determining audit risk, determining materiality levels, when you are performing the audit, determining whether the evidence that you have obtained, whether it is sufficient or not, everywhere a lot of judgment is involved. So all these are examples of situations where judgment is used. Is this clear to everyone? Right? Okay, so please remember, this question can also be asked. If they ask you write something about professional judgment, do mention the situations wherein you need to exercise your professional judgment. Okay, now 4th point, very simple, sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. We are going to discuss this in detail when we cover SA 500 series. Okay, but for the timing, you all know the auditor applies procedure, and when he applies procedure, he tries to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. When I say the word sufficient means it is a measure of quantity, and when I say appropriate, it means quality. So if let's say the client is giving me photocopies of certain documents, maybe it is sufficient, but it is not appropriate because I want originals. I trust in originals more. Okay, so what amounts to sufficient and appropriate, we are going to discuss this in detail in essay 500. But for the time being, for essay 200, I think these two words are sufficient. When I say sufficient, it means with respect to quantity. When I say appropriateness, it is with respect to quality. Okay, and then we have a point, conduct of an audit in accordance with standards on auditing. Okay, now please remember that an auditor, it is mandatory to comply with all the standards which is relevant to your audit. Okay, now for example, SA 501 deals with three aspects. One is inventory, one is litigation and claims, and the third one is segment reporting. For example, now the client under consideration, litigation and claims is not applicable, segment reporting is not applicable. Now will SA 501 be applicable on the client? He has got inventory. SA 501 will be applicable to the client, but will the entire SA 501 will be applicable? No, only the relevant portion, only the portion with respect to inventory will be applicable. So please remember first 2 points, that it is mandatory basically to comply with the relevant essays in the audit and follow only relevant portion of essay. Follow only relevant portion of the essay if the entire essay is not applicable. Okay, next, in case whatever is written in the standard, let's say 501 only, let us consider some procedures are written with respect to inventory. For some reason or the other, I am not able to perform that procedure for some reason or the other. Okay, so without applying procedure, I shouldn't say that okay, the item of inventory is giving true and fair view. I should in that scenario apply some alternative audit procedure. Please mark this word here. In case of departure from a relevant requirement of essay, if you are not able to comply with certain requirement of essay, I need to apply alternative audit procedure. There is a difference. Please remember, this is alternative audit procedure. But when we were discussing this professional skepticism, there was a word addition here. There is a difference between additional audit procedure and alternative audit procedure. Please remember this. Okay, all right. And finally, please understand this. If let's say I'm not able to achieve objective of one particular essay, I need to assess that is it hampering my overall objective of audit. If because of let's say I'm not able to achieve objective of one particular standard, let's say because of this I am not able to achieve the overall objective of the standard, then obviously what should I be doing? I should bring the impact of this in my audit report. I should basically modify my audit report. When I say modify, it means either I should come up with a qualified opinion or an adverse opinion or disclaimer of opinion, or in case if law permits, I can even resign or let's say withdraw from the engagement. So if objective of a relevant essay cannot be achieved, the auditor shall evaluate if failure prevents auditor from achieving overall objectives of the auditor. Okay, and you all know overall objective means what? That we have to give an opinion on the financial statements. Okay, now if my opinion is getting impacted because of one particular objective, obviously I shall modify my opinion. So in that case, he shall consider the need to modify the audit report or withdraw from the engagement. If law permits, we can even resign from the work. Okay, so this is the part with respect to conduct of an audit in accordance with standards on auditing. Please again, let me plead you guys that don't cram these standards. It is so very easy to understand. If you understand things, if you understand the examples, you will be able to write well in the exam. If you learn everything, if you try and mug up everything, you'll find the course very complicated. Okay, so please try to understand as much as possible so that you are able to score well in your MCQ and true and false portion also. Okay, finally we have a topic of essay 200, which is inherent limitations of audit. As per essay 200, we have got 3 inherent limitations of audit. One is with respect to, I'm just reading the names first: nature of financial reporting, nature of audit procedure, and third is limitations with respect to time and cost. Okay, these are the 3 limitations as per essay 200. But if I go with the ICI module, there is one more limitation, which is other matters. Okay, but as per essay 200, we have got 3 limitations. First is nature of financial reporting. Now when I discuss nature of financial reporting as a limitation, please remember that these 3 points, preparation of financial statements involves judgment by management. A lot of judgment is used by the management when they prepare financial statements. They use a lot of estimates. Okay, now for example, for this particular year, management told me that they think that this much amount of data are going to be doubtful, and they make a provision accordingly. Now my audit procedure, I have got no audit procedures basically to verify this. I have got, they tell me that yeah, this is the provision of doubtful debts that they feel, and they make it. Okay, I have to agree on it. There is a lot of subjectivity involved here. Okay, so because of this, because of management's judgments, because of a lot of estimates, I can never give an absolute assurance. Because management might, what could have the management done? They feel that this year there is a lot of profit, and if there is a profit, if there is good amount of profit, they might have to pay high amount of taxes. So in order to let's say evade this situation, they increase the amount of provision of doubtful debts to be that comes in the PL, so that the profit comes down, the relevant taxes they come down. Okay, so provision for doubtful debts is something which I cannot verify. There is no underlying documents, or there is no concrete formula. Okay, this much debtors will always be doubtful, and accordingly the provision is made. So please remember, a lot of judgments, because of lot of judgments and estimates, a lot of subjectivity is there, and our tools, our audit tools are not efficient, or let's say they are not sufficient to determine these to check on these estimates, right? So this is the first inherent limitation of audit, nature of financial reporting. Second is nature of audit procedure. First was with respect to the management, second is with respect to our procedures. Okay, so see, whatever procedures we, whatever procedures we apply, we only are able to obtain persuasive evidence rather than conclusive. Now what do you mean by persuasive? Evidence good enough to persuade us, but it is not convincing, it is not conclusive. Okay, now for example, just one example I would like to share here. Let's say the management of the company I was auditing, let's say I find a high sales amount towards the end of the year. Let's say a company has initiated a credit sales to its subsidiary company amounting to 30 lakhs on 28th March 2021, just when the financials were about to when the year was about to end. So I asked the management, what is this transaction all about? Explain me this transaction. So the management told me that yes, they have initiated a credit sale to their subsidiary company. The subsidiary company was in need of raw material, and so they have made the sale. So now, yeah, so now what is going to happen, when I see this transaction which has happened at the year end, and that too of very high volume, so my professional skepticism should be now switched on. Okay, it should automatically get it should be on, right? Okay, so now I'm going to ask more questions to the management. I'm going to ask them to substantiate the transaction. So they'll produce, let's say, the invoice they give me. Obviously when the transaction was done, they have generated the invoice, they show me the invoice, they show me the challan, the transportation freight challan. Okay, they show me the order copy from the subsidiary which they have received, purchase order copy. They show me the security guard register that okay, the truck was loaded and the raw materials have gone to the subsidiary company. A lot of documents they show, but I ultimately know this in my mind that this is a bogus transaction. Okay, they have done it, the holding company has done it only to basically reach its sales target, and the next year on 5th or 6th April they are going to do a sales return. I know this, but even though I know this, I cannot give a qualified opinion here because they have produced ample documents to justify the transaction. So I cannot give a qualified opinion here. So what I'm trying to say, even our procedures, even if we apply, we obtain only persuasive kind of evidence. I cannot obtain conclusive evidence. Now if I am sure that okay, this is a transaction which has been done just to show that the targets have been reached and they are going to do a sales return next year, on the basis of this thing, I give a qualified opinion. Now when people will ask me on what grounds did you give the qualified opinion, I have no proof to give, so I cannot give a qualified opinion here. So what I'm trying to tell you is, most of the audit evidence which the auditor obtains is persuasive in nature rather than conclusive. Okay, and sometimes the management and the TCWG, they do not provide us complete information, and in fact because we don't have investigatory powers like the ones which CID and police officers have, okay, we don't have investigatory powers. So you cannot expect from auditors to determine all kinds of frauds, and especially those frauds wherein the management and the TCWG is involved. So they must have carefully designed and implemented the entire scheme of fraud, which is very difficult for us to determine. Okay, and then we have one more limitation with respect to time and cost. Obviously, if you are a company, I have to obviously do the audit. I have to give the audit report before the AGM, obviously at least 21 days before the AGM, so that the notice and all along with the audit report, along with the annual reports, can be sent to the shareholders. So I'm bound by time here, and because of this, if it is a huge company, I'll never be able to check 100% of their transactions. So in this case, in case of limitations with respect to time and cost, do mention the word test checking. The auditor resorts to test checking, he resorts to sampling, he cannot check 100% of the transactions. Okay, and because of this, because of these three reasons, guys, please remember, different types of questions can be asked. They may ask you directly what are the inherent limitations of audit, or they may ask you something like this: audit risk cannot be reduced to zero or brought to zero, explain. So you have to mention that audit risk cannot be brought to zero because of the inherent limitations of audit. Auditor cannot issue absolute assurance, again because of inherent limitations of audit. So all these questions, the answer ultimately will be inherent limitations of audit. So I have mentioned the three headings and the keywords here, so that you are able to frame a proper answer. What are the 3 points? Again, nature of financial reporting, nature of audit procedure, and last is limitations with respect to time and cost. Okay, so guys, with this our essay 200 is also over.